I remember when my then 12-year-old daughter Margery participated in a school poetry reading in which all her classmates had to write a lie poem about how great they were. They were supposed to make up untruths about themselves that made them sound unbelievably wonderful. I realized as I listened to the poems that the children were doing an unattended version of what Arnold did to clarify the picture of his future. By lying to themselves, they were creating a vision of who they wanted to be. It's noteworthy, too, that public schools are so out of touch with the motivational sources of individual achievement and personal success. In order to invite children to express big visions for themselves, they have to invite the children to lie. Most of us are unable to see the truth of who we could be. My daughter's school developed an unintended solution to that difficulty. If it's hard for you to imagine the potential in yourself, then you might want to begin by expressing it as a fantasy. As did the children who wrote the poems. Think up some stories about who you would like to be. Soon you will begin to create the necessary blueprint for stretching your accomplishments. Without a picture of your highest self, you can't live into that self. Fake it till you make it. The lie will become the truth. Keep your eyes on the prize. Most of us never really focus. We constantly feel a kind of irritating psychic chaos because we keep trying to think of too many things at once. There's always too much up there on the screen. There was an interesting motivational talk on this subject given by former Dallas Cowboys coach Jimmy Johnson to his football players during halftime at the 1993 Super Bowl. One told them that if I laid a 2x4 across the room, everybody there would walk across it and not fall, because our focus would be that we were going to walk that 2x4. But if I put that same 2x4 10 stories high between two buildings, only a few would make it because the focus would be on falling. Focus is everything. The team that is more focused today is the team that will win this game. Johnson told his team not to be distracted by the crowd, the media, or the possibility of losing, but to focus on each play of the game itself, just as if it were a good practice session. The Cowboys won the game 52-17. There's a point to that story that goes way beyond football. Most of us tend to lose our focus in life because we're perpetually worried about so many negative possibilities. Rather than focusing on the 2x4, we worry about all the ramifications of falling. Rather than focusing on our goals, we are distracted by our worries and fears. But when you focus on what you want, it will come into your life. When you focus on being a happy and motivated person, that is who you will be. Learn to sweat in peace. The harder you are on yourself, the easier life is on you. Or, as they say in the Navy SEALs, the more you sweat in peacetime, the less you bleed in war. My childhood friend Rhett Nichols was the first to show me this principle in action. When we were playing Little League Baseball, we were always troubled by how fast the pitchers threw the ball. We were in an especially good league, and the overgrown opposing pitchers, whose birth certificates we were always demanding to see, fired the ball to us at alarming speeds during the games. We began dreading going up to the plate to hit. It wasn't fun. Batting had become something we just tried to get through without embarrassing ourselves too much. Then Rhett got an idea. What if the pitches we faced in games were slower than the ones we face every day in practice? Rhett asked. That's just the problem, I said. We don't know anybody who can pitch that fast to us. That's why, in the games, it's so hard. The ball looks like an aspirin coming in at 200 miles an hour. I know we don't know anyone who can throw a baseball that fast, said Rhett. But what if it wasn't a baseball? I don't know what you mean, I said. Just then Rhett pulled from his pocket a little plastic golf ball with holes in it. The kind our dads used to hit in the backyard for golf practice. Get a bat, Rhett said. I picked up a baseball bat and we walked out to the park near Rhett's house. Rhett went to the pitcher's mound but came in about 3 feet closer than usual. As I stood at the plate, he fired the little golf ball past me as I tried to swing at it. Ha ha! Rhett shouted. That's faster than anybody you'll face in Little League. Let's get going. We then took turns pitching to each other with this bizarre little ball humming in at incredible speeds. The little plastic ball was not only hilariously fast, but it curved and dropped more sharply than any Little Leaguer's pitch could do. By the time Rhett and I played our next league game, we were ready. The pitches looked like they were coming in slow motion. Big white balloons. I hit the first and only home run I ever hit after one of Rhett's sessions. It was off a left-hander whose pitch seemed to hang in the air forever before I creamed it. The lesson Rhett taught me was one I've never forgotten. Whenever I'm afraid of something coming up, I will find a way to do something that's even harder or scarier. Once I do the harder thing, the real thing becomes fun. The great boxer Muhammad Ali used this principle in choosing his sparring partners. He'd make sure that the spar-ring partners he worked with before a fight were better than the boxer he was going up against in the real fight. They might not always be better all around, but he found sparring partners who were each better in one certain way or another than his upcoming opponent. After facing them, he knew to go into each fight that he had already fought those skills and won. You can always stage a bigger battle than the one you have to face. Watch what it does to your motivation going into the real challenge. Simplify your life. The great Green Bay Packers football coach Vince Lombardi was once asked why his world championship team, which had so many multi-talented players, ran such a simple set of plays. "It's hard to be aggressive when you're confused," he said. One of the benefits of creatively planning your life is that it allows you to simplify. You can weed out, delegate, and eliminate all activities that don't contribute to your projected goals. Another effective way to simplify your life is to combine your tasks. Combining allows you to achieve 2 or more objectives at once. As I plan my day, I might notice that I need to shop for my family after work. That's a task I can't avoid because we're running out of everything. I also note that one of my goals is to finish reading my daughter Stephanie's book reports. I realized, too, that I've made a decision to spend more time doing things with all my kids, as I've tended lately to just come home and crash at the end of a long day. An aggressive orientation to the day, making each day simpler and stronger than the day before, allows you to look at all of these tasks and small goals and ask yourself, what can I combine? Creativity is really little more than making unexpected combinations, in music, architecture, anything, including your day. After some thought, I realized that I can combine shopping with doing something with my children. That looks obvious and easy, but I can't count the times I mindlessly go shopping, or do things on my own just to get them done, and then run out of time to play with the kids. I also think a little further and remember that the grocery store where we shop has a little deli with tables in it. My kids love to make lists and go up and down the aisles themselves to fill the grocery cart, so I decide to read my daughter's book reports at the deli while they travel the aisles for food. They see where I'm sitting, and keep coming over to update me on what they are choosing. After an hour or so, 3 things have happened at once. 1. I've done something with the kids. 2. I've read through the book reports. And 3. The shopping has been completed. In her book Brain Building in Just 12 Weeks, Marilyn Voss Savon recommends something similar to simplify life. She advises that we make a list of absolutely every small task that has to be done, say, over the weekend, and then do them all at once, in one exciting, focused action. A manic blitz. In other words, fuse all small tasks together and make the doing of the one a task so that the rest of the weekend is absolutely free to create as we wish. Bob Kether, who was the president of Infincom, had the most simplified time management system I've ever seen in my life. His method was, do everything right on the spot, don't put anything unnecessarily into your future. Do it now, so that the future is always wide open. Watching him in action was always an experience. I was sitting in his office and I mentioned the name of a person whose company I wanted to take my training to in the future. "Will you make a note to get in touch with him and let him know I'll be calling?" I asked. "Make a note?" he asked in horror. The next thing I knew, before I could say anything, Bob was wheeling in his chair, and dialing the person on the phone. Within 2 minutes, he'd scheduled a meeting between the person and me, and after he put down the phone he said, "Okay, done. What's next?" I told him I had prepared the report he wanted on training for his service teams and I handed it to him. "You can read it later and get back to me," I offered. "Hold on a second," he said, already deeply absorbed in reading the report's content. After 10 minutes or so, during which time he read aloud much of what interested him, the report had been digested, discussed, and filed. It was a time management system like no other. What would you call it? Perhaps, handle everything immediately. It kept Bob's life simple. He was aggressive and successful CEO, and, as Vince Lombardi said, it's hard to be aggressive when you're confused. Most people are reluctant to see themselves as being creative because they associate creativity with complexity. But creativity is simplicity. Michelangelo said that he could act to ally see his masterpiece, the David, in the huge, rough rock he discovered in a marble quarry. His only job, he said, was to carve away what wasn't necessary and he would have his statue. Achieving simplicity in our cluttered and hectic lives is also an ongoing process of carving away what's unnecessary. My most dramatic experience of the power of simplicity occurred in 1984 when I was hired to help write the television and radio advertisements for Jim Colby, a candidate for United States Congress running in Arizona's 5th District. In that campaign, I saw firsthand how focus, purpose, and simplicity can work together to create a great result. Based on prior political history, Colby had about a 3% chance of winning the election. His opponent was a popular incumbent congressman, during a time when incumbents were almost never defeated by challengers. In addition, Colby was a Republican in a largely Democratic district. And the final strike against him was that he had tried once before to defeat this same man, Jim McNulty, and had lost. The voters had already spoken on the issue. Colby himself supplied the campaign with its sense of purpose. A tireless campaigner with unwavering principles, he emanated his sense of mission and we all drew energy from him. Political consultant Joe Shumate, one of the shrewdest people I've ever worked with, kept us all focused on consistent campaign strategy. It was the job of the advertising and media work to keep it strong and simple. Although our opponent ran nearly 15 different TV ads, each one about a different issue, we determined from the outset that we would stick to the same message throughout, from the first ad to the last. We basically ran the same ad over and over. We knew that although the district was largely Democratic, our polling showed that philosophically it was more conservative. Colby himself was conservative, so his views coincided with the voters better than our opponents did, although the voters weren't yet aware of it. Each of our ads focused on our simple theme: who better represents you? This allowed us to gain rapidly in the polls, as election night neared. The night-long celebration of Jim Colby's upset victory brought a huge message home to me: the simpler you keep it, the stronger it gets. Colby won a close victory that night, but he served 11 terms and is now an Obama appointee. He has never complicated his message, and he has kept his politics strong and simple, even when it looked unpopular to do so. It's hard to stay motivated when you're confused. When you simplify your life, it gathers focus. The more you can focus your life, the more motivated it gets.